VFD now, because our best deal ever won't last long. Get closer, go farther with Optimum.
Tonight, America decides, the biggest night in politics. The balance of power is on the line, and we take you to the states everyone is watching. And already tonight, we've got breaking news as Republicans are increasingly optimistic they could take back control of Congress. Our coverage starts right now.
This is a CBS News special, America Decides Campaign 22. Now reporting from CBS News election headquarters in Times Square, Norah O'Donnell.
Good evening and welcome to CBS News Election Night headquarters, and our powerhouse political team will break down the biggest races in America with the key issues voters care most about. We have reporters on the ground covering every major race across the country, bringing you the latest information from the battleground states. We also have CBS News' unparalleled analysis, data, and the best team in politics. Already tonight, we have breaking news. CBS News rates the House as leaning Republican. And there's been record-shattering turnout for early voting, with more than 45 million Americans casting their ballots even before today. But there are some warning signs tonight for Democrats about the makeup of the electorate. And as polls have closed in 25 states, we have fresh clues from bellwether races as to who will control the House of Representatives. At this hour, Republicans are increasingly confident that they will wrest control from Democrats and install Kevin McCarthy as the next Speaker of the House. For the Senate, Republicans need to pick up just one seat. The outcome of these midterms will determine the future of Joe Biden's presidency, as Donald Trump teases he'll announce a third run for the White House next week. We have new reporting from our chief election and campaign correspondent, Robert Costa, tonight. Bob?
Good to be with you, Nora. Just got off the phone with House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. He is on the brink of becoming the next Speaker of the House from Bakersfield, California. He outlined to CBS News in a one-on-one interview what that would mean for the country. Said investigations of the Biden administration on COVID, Afghanistan. The Justice Department said he wants to sit down with President Biden, talk about spending cuts in exchange for a debt limit extension. He also called former President Trump an ally and very helpful in any GOP gains made tonight. And he noted he has been huddling in recent days with former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, of course, from 1994, and that Republican wave.
Robert Costa with that breaking news and that exclusive interview with the man who could be the next Speaker of the House. I want to bring in our chief political analyst, John Dickerson. What will you be looking for tonight?
Well, I'm just going to pick up where Bob was, because listen to what his sentence was. McCarthy's going to have investigations and then sit down with Biden. Those are two things directly at odds with each other, and that's part of the challenge for a McCarthy speakership, if there is one. Also, I don't know what our exit polls are going to show, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to show that Americans wanted investigations. This will be one of the early challenges. How much does a majority investigate? How much does a majority deal with the issues that Americans are burning about prices, education, and other things?
Wow, tonight is already getting interesting. Wow, and we're just getting started. Gail King, I know you have been talking to voters. People are frustrated.
They're very frustrated, and Nora, they're exhausted. I'm glad that our coverage is called America Decides, because this is really happening. America, you are deciding, even as we speak right now, but they're just ready to move on. And to your point, John, I think people are tired of investigations. They're tired of the bickering. They're just exhausted. That said, people said they still have a lot of hope. They still have a lot of hope. We still live in the United States of America, and they believe that we can figure out a way to get this done. But right now, it is extremely bumpy. I was at my polling place today. Listen, I've been voting since I was 18. I was thrilled to walk in and vote again. And, of course, I'm talking to people in line. It was a short line. And somebody said, you know, we used to vote for the best candidate. Now I vote for who is not the worst candidate. Not exactly ideal, and you wouldn't say who he was voting for, but there's a little bit of that as well.
Wow, we'll hear more from the exit poll analysis, too, about what drove people to the polls. And let's get straight to the results now in key states. CBS News declares Ron DeSantis, he is the projected winner, I should say, as governor of Florida. Also in the Senate race there, CBS News projects that Senator Marco Rubio is the winner in that Florida Senate race. In Pennsylvania, this is the most expensive Senate race in the country. It is a toss-up at this hour. As you can see, the votes will be trickling in slowly tonight. In Georgia, our current rating is a toss-up in this contest. Again, these are very early numbers. We must caution at this hour. This is going to change a lot throughout the night, but we're going to let you know as the vote is counted in the governor's race. You can see CBS News is rating this lean Republican. The numbers may not show that yet again because just 32% of the vote is coming in at this hour. And in Ohio, this is key. CBS News rates this as lean Republican for J.D. Vance. Just 20% of the vote in there, but we'll have more on that Senate race coming up. And in North Carolina, CBS News rates the North Carolina Senate race as lean Republican for Congressman Ted Budd. Now let's turn to control of Congress. We're joined by Chief Washington Correspondent Major Garrett and our Elections and Surveys Director, Anthony Salvanto. Let's break down what we're just learning about this and why we're saying that the House leans Republican.
Good evening, Nora. Great to be with you. You know, we're here at the data desk all night. What is data? It's really your voices, how the votes come in that you cast throughout the process in our midterm election. As that data comes in, we're going to project races. And right now, Anthony, we can project a trend line in the United States House of Representatives.
Here's the score. Right now, 181 seats to 158 seats in favor of the Republicans. The reason we know this is that the data we've seen so far from exit polls and the reports that have come in from the East Coast is there's an average shift of 3 points per district on the average towards the Republicans. That gives them the early edge.
And that is not exactly, obviously, going to be the final number, but that indicates a possibly favorable night for Republicans. And, Anthony, if I'm not mistaken, this is consistent with what we saw in all of our battleground surveys leading up to Election night.
It is indeed. The pre-election polls bearing out as we see earlier reports tonight, Major.
Yes, Nora, back to you on the House.
Well, on that note, the House there, I mean, this would be sort of a watershed moment. We already heard just at the top of the hour about Robert Costa speaking to the man who's expected to be voted in as the next Speaker of the House. That'll change a lot in Washington.
Oh, absolutely. And now the question is how much it changes in Washington depends on who controls the Senate. And also, as Bob mentioned, how big McCarthy's majority is. The more he has, the more he can do, the less grief he'll get from his restive caucus. We'll talk later about that as it becomes more clear that he might be the Speaker.
The other big news, of course, that we just got, the calls that Anthony Salvanto is making is in those two Senate races. Let's start with North Carolina.
So, Anthony, let's talk about North Carolina and help our viewers through the process because they're looking at their screens and saying, wait a minute, look at these numbers. Why are we, at this moment, giving this a lean Republican projection?
And the answer is it's the difference between the early vote, which tends to favor the Democrats, and the election day vote, which tends to favor the Republicans. They are counting the early vote first. That has Sherry Beasley out to a counted vote lead. However, we've had exit poll interviewers all over North Carolina today. We've had precinct reporters. And in those reports, it favors the Republican, Ted Budd. Not a surprise. Republicans turn out in force on Election Day. So we can rate this lean Republican based on all that data and bring it to you with the lean red.
And is that a similar story that we're seeing also in Ohio? Because, again, I'm thinking about our viewers at home. They were looking at it. We showed the map, and they said, whoa, wait a minute. Tim Ryan, that's blue. J.D. Vance, that's red. Again, lean Republican, more or less the same story?
More or less the same story, and that is going to be instructive all night long. It's what type of vote is in the count. It's early. That favors the Democrats, but Republicans voting in force on Election Day, we think turnout will go up for them. That'll help J.D. Vance.
Nora, what we're going to do at the data desk all night is be thorough and transparent about all the data and how it leads to projections in any direction.
It's incredibly helpful. Now let's come back to our table here and talk about the party that controls the presidency usually loses House and Senate seats. We should set that up. That is traditionally true. That is historically true. The average is 28 House seats and 4 Senate seats. But tonight, will Democrats hold on, or will it be a red ripple or a tsunami? That's the question really tonight. I think the data is just too soon to tell, right, Ed O'Keefe?
It would be too soon, but certainly things are trending in their direction. And this is something the White House has anticipated. Remember, they began staffing up over the summer in anticipation of the Republicans taking control of the House, hiring a new batch of lawyers and communicators to get ready to counter the offensive that's coming from the GOP. The White House and the president in the last few days signaling they understand it perhaps is too difficult to hold the House, which is why they're so eager and keeping an eye tonight on those Senate contests across the country.
I have a feeling before this night is over, Nora, we're all going to feel like kids again, that we were on a seesaw. that it's going back and forth as the night goes, as a vote comes in, that the numbers will keep changing.
Yeah,
it's fascinating to watch it.
As they count the vote. Yeah, that's why we have to pay close attention, because you're right. It's because the mail-in vote gets counted different than people who have been voting in person. We should say we're also getting new information right now on what drove voters to the polls and why. Vladimir Duthier has our latest CBS News national exit polls. Hi there, Vlad.
Hi, Nora. Good to see you. So what we're doing is we're interviewing people who voted before Election Day, as well as those who vote on Election Day, and that will give us a comprehensive look at this year's electorate, who voters are choosing and why they are choosing them. So let's take a look at the mood of the country right now and how voters are feeling. As you might imagine, most are at least dissatisfied. But what was the top issue? Well, if you're voting for a Republican candidate, it is inflation. That is top of mind. On the other hand, on the other side of the aisle, if you're voting for a Democratic candidate, abortion is top of mind for you. But that is not the only thing that voters are concerned about. Nor they tell us, most Americans say, 69% of the Americans that we voted, the electorate that we polled, say that our very democracy itself is under threat. So when you take this in totality and you crunch all the numbers and the data, what does it tell us? Anxious times, Nora, anxious voters.
Vladimir Duthier, thank you. I want to bring in our moderator of Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan. We predicted some of this, but it's interesting to see why people have gone to the polls. As Gail mentioned, frustrated. It's driving the vote.
It is. It's the economy. It's the economy. It's the economy. And at this point in the night, what we're seeing so far is the majority of voters have trended to be older. They've trended to be Republican and are driven by these concerns of inflation. That may not be that surprising, frankly, if you think about that demographic in particular. If you're on a fixed income, you feel the bite of inflation a bit more. You've seen your assets that you own in your retirement accounts shrink back. You have more anxiety around that. And you feel the gas and the food inflation that much more. You feel it in a really visceral way. So at this point in the night, not terribly surprising to see that trend. I spoke to an economist at Bank of America today who pointed out that consumer sentiment right now is in the worst place it has been since the Great Recession, since the financial crisis. And this is even when we've gotten back all the jobs lost in the pandemic. To what Gail was talking about, people are exhausted, they are frustrated, and even though the foundations of the economy may be back, they are not feeling like that. In the South and the West, we've seen an economic recovery pretty quickly since the pandemic, not the case in the Midwest and the Northeast.
And you know what? I think, Margaret, when you're anxious and you're frustrated and you're just mad, you tend to blame whoever's in power at the time, thinking, we need to make a change because what you're doing isn't working.
You try to get control.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we'll have more on the demographic shift in Florida and what drove CBS News to project 2 big Republican wins. This is CBS News, America Decides.
At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. We designed smarter ways to detect motion for fast emergency response. We create HD cameras so you could see what's happening in your home from anywhere. All powered by Fast Protect technology, exclusively from SimpliSafe for faster police response. Because in here, your safety is the only thing that matters. Advanced home security, 24/7 professional monitoring. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
If you have type 2 diabetes or high blood pressure, you're a target for chronic kidney disease. They're the top 2 causes of CKD. CKD usually starts with no symptoms, so you can have it and not know it. To find out, check the kidney numbers from your lab tests. If you have chronic kidney disease, Farxiga can help slow its progression.
Farxiga can cause serious side effects, including dehydration, urinary tract or genital yeast infections in women and men, and low blood sugar. Ketoacidosis is a serious side effect that may lead to death. A rare, life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Farxiga and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this bacterial infection, an allergic reaction, or ketoacidosis. And don't take it if you are on dialysis.
Take aim at CKD by asking your doctor for your kidney numbers and how Farxiga can help. If you can't afford your medication, AstraZeneca may be able to help.
When your V-neck looks more like a U-neck, that's when you know it's half washed. Downy has 7 benefits that condition and smooth fibers, so clothes look newer, longer. Feel the difference with Downy.
Dude, you coming? Because the only thing dripping should be your style. Plop Plop is Fizz. with Alka-Seltzer Plus cold and flu relief. Also try for Fizzy Fast cough relief.
Welcome back. Election night is just getting underway, and polls are closed for more than 70 million Americans. And we are getting important clues about who could take control of Congress. Right now, CBS News rates the House as leaning Republican. And here are the newest race results. CBS News can project that when all the votes are counted, Tim Scott will win re-election as senator in South Carolina. The CBS News race rating for the New Hampshire Senate race is a toss-up at this hour. More on that in just a minute, but let's dig in now to two big races in Florida, as CBS News is projecting that Republican Senator Marco Rubio will win re-election, and we're projecting that Republican Governor Ron DeSantis will win re-election as governor of the Sunshine State. Many had predicted that Governor DeSantis would confidently win re-election, but we are watching margins in parts of this state to see what it means for a DeSantis future. John Dickerson?
Remember the squeaker that DeSantis won last time?
Yeah.
He trounced, possibly. He's going to do much, much better than the squeaker he won by last time. And the same's true with Marco Rubio. Both did much better in Florida. And their neighbor might remind them that it's his changing the Republican Party that helped them, that neighbor being Donald Trump.
There you go. Well, look, Major Garrett and Anthony Salvanzo have some really interesting information about what's going on in Florida.
First of all, Nora, it's breaking news that we're calling Florida this early in the evening. I mean, come on. Americans of a certain age, and believe me, I am one of them, knows that Florida takes a while, historically, but not tonight. Florida's called, projected, for both the Senate and the governor's race. That by itself is unusual. And sometimes you see big breakout moments that are reflective of a long, simmering trend. And we're going to show you that right now in Miami-Dade County, Anthony, with the Latino vote.
This is news. In projecting this race, one of the things we looked at is Miami-Dade, okay? This is